The community has spoken. Kirk and the team over at Mastin Labs have put the final touches on the Portra Pushed styles, and that leaves only the Fuji Push styles from the original Mastin Labs Lightroom pack to be ported over to Capture One. If you're like me and you've made the jump over to Capture One, you'll be as stoked as I am for this release. This was one of my favorite packs for Lightroom, that being because I shoot a lot of film on my Leica M3 here, my Canon film camera over there, alongside my digital, which is shooting right here, my Canon 5D Mark IV. If you're not familiar with pushing film, I'm not going to go into the fine details here, but essentially you're telling your camera that the film inside of it is more sensitive to light than it actually is. So the first part of pushing film is done in the camera. The second part is done in the development process, which you're essentially just leaving the film in the developer longer. Now, why would you do this? Why would you push your film? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One being that it allows you to use less available light using a faster shutter speed, avoiding motion blur and extending your shooting time maybe into the evening. Two, some people just like the look. And by look, I mean more contrast, more grain, and then there's a slight color shift in the shadows and the highlights. And that last part being why the Mastin Labs preset packs and styles are really great is because they actually capture those slight shifts in color. So back to Portra Pushed or Capture One. The team over at Mastin Labs has been kind enough to give my viewers a 10% discount code, which is Kyle410, which is down in the description. You can check it out there. There'll be a link to where you can buy these as well. If you're familiar with Mastin Labs, you'll know that they only have 2 sales a year. So if you want a bit of a discount, grab that 10% code and make sure you use it at checkout. Let's jump on over to Capture One and take a look at these new styles. All right, friends, we're here in Capture One. As you'll see here, we've got the Portra Pushed styles loaded up already. If you don't know how to install those, you literally just double click on them and it'll import them into Capture One. Super easy. So the first image here, we've got a landscape shot from Idaho from this summer. So we'll just kind of go through each one of these and just kind of give you a preview what it looks like, and then we'll jump in. Let's see, so Portra 160, +1, +2. That's really nice. This image really lends itself to some contrast, so I think that the +2s are going to look really nice. Portra 400, Portra 800, get a little more blue going there, that's nice. And Portra 800, so you get the shift in the colors a lot with the 800 +2, that's quite nice. I love what it does to the mountains, so we'll stick with that. Again, the white balance things are really great to give you a nice starting point. So let's take a look. Open shade looks like it's probably the best other than as shot. So we're gonna leave it as shot because I really like that, and then we'll go and tweak it in a second. So the tone profiles are really special, and that's something that Kirk has modeled after the Frontier scanner at his office. And it can help you with some tricky lighting situations or to bring a little more contrast into your images. So we'll kind of walk through each one of those and see how they look. But you can kind of mix and match these and see how they look. The all hard obviously adds a little more contrast, brings the shadows down a little bit, and pumps up the highlights, so adding a little more contrast. All soft does the exact opposite. It'll lift some of the shadows and bring down some of the highlights, which is nice. Highlight hard is just bringing up highlights. Soft, just bringing them down. Shadows is the same thing. So you kind of see how they all change. I'm going for more contrast in this image, so I'm going to go all hard here. And then there's a few things that need removed here, but I think this is pretty dang close. I'm going to tweak the exposure a little bit because it's a little dark. And then actually go to my workspace here. And then we're going to change the Kelvin, warm it up a touch. That's nice. Let's see if the tint needs adjusting a little bit, a little magenta. Then maybe bring up the shadows a little touch. I know we went all hard, but I kind of want to see some of these trees coming back, so that's really nice. Maybe the highlights down a little more. Get some of those details back in the clouds here. That's really nice. You can see a before and after. That's great. And then to finish up this image, I would clean up some of the spots going on here, especially this one here. And then these other ones might go away with some of the detail enhancements, which are pretty great. It's this under noise reduction, which is under the details panel if you haven't got a custom workspace. It's under single pixel, and you can drag that up a little bit and it might get rid of some of the single hot pixels, but that one doesn't seem, oh, there it goes. Must be just a weird artifact from the file, long exposures. But I think that looks really great. Moving on. Let's see, we've got a wedding image here, got a few of those. So I'll kind of walk through these. The light in this space was just absolutely gorgeous, so I think this is going to be a really fun experiment to see. Portra 160 +2. So you get a little color shift there, you get a little more blue or green in the highlights, bluish green. Portra 400 +1, and then +2 you get that color shift again. 800 +1, +1, +2, and there's your color shift again. You get a little bit of green in the highlights, maybe some magenta in the shadows. It's really nice. I did shoot Portra 400 on this day, so I'm just gonna go with that, but I think I'm gonna go with +2, just give it a little more contrast, and then we can kind of tweak it from there and see how it goes. I'm gonna pop the exposure up just a little. I'm gonna bring up the shadows a little bit because he's kind of dark over here, but I don't want to affect her too much. Bring down the highlights just a touch, maybe bring the whites up a little. Looks pretty nice. As far as white balance, warm it up a little. His shirt's pretty blue. It's pretty nice. It's all about trying to find that balance with the tint slider. It needs a little magenta, but not much. I think that's pretty nice. So a little before and after. See that the image was a little bit blue, but it's a really nice image. This is going to be a pretty contrasty image anyways, so we may have to adjust that a little bit, but it's a sunrise wedding. Portra 160 +2. Portra 400 +1, +2. Doesn't really affect them a whole lot, but I think we're going to want to go +1 on this one. It's just going to be too much contrast for me. Being bright, I think I'm going to go with 160 +1. And set it to daylight, I think. And then tone profiles. I'm going to go all soft on this because it's pretty dang contrasty. We'll bring back, actually I'm gonna raise the shadows a bit, bring back some of this nice scenery, bring down the highlights a little bit because I don't want to lose the sky, but I think we're not losing anything right now. Looks pretty good. That's pretty nice there. Might cool it off a little. It feels a little excessively warm. That morning light's really, really warm, so I think I'm gonna stick it about there. That looks quite nice. Maybe bring a little more blacks in and shadows just a touch. I think that looks really nice. Maybe the highlights down a little bit more. Before and after. A little more pop. Make the trees really green. That's great. It's really nice. This is more of a dark and moody style photo. Shot in the Northwest, super foggy day. Really love that. Let's kind of go through again. 160 +1, +2, So you get that color shift in the highlights a little bit. I like that. It kind of actually, like, the shadows get a little orangish brown, and then the highlights get a little blue. That makes a nice image. Portra 400 +1, +2, kind of get the same thing. You can really see it on these images. It's a lot of white. 800 +1, +2. I'm gonna go with 800 +1 on this. I really like how that looks. Let's see, cloudy. We'll start with cloudy, but we're gonna tweak it because that's pretty blue. So going back here, I'm gonna bring up the exposure a little bit because it was a bit underexposed to begin with. I don't want to bring it light and airy style, but just bring it up a touch. Then we'll bring the Kelvin warm. We want to make sure that dress isn't blue or green. It was a bit of a cream color, so that looks nice. And then the tint, we'll just bring up the magenta a touch. Get rid of some of that green. And then bring up the shadows a little. Make sure we get some detail still in that nice navy suit. And then the whites a little, because we're very low. The highlights a touch. That's really nice. I really like what we've got going there. Before and after. That's spectacular. Very cool. Studio shot, give you guys an idea what it'll look like in studio stuff. So it's lit pretty dramatically. So we're gonna take a look and see how these look. 160 +1, +2. That's really nice. I have a feeling that's gonna be the one. 400 +1. Ooh, 400 +2. Buddy, these +2s are looking really nice. 800 +1, +2. Man. This is tough. I think I'm going to stick with, man, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with the 160 +2 though. That's really nice. And this was shot with Kino flows, I believe. So I think they're pretty close to daylight balanced. But I like the warmth of the flash. So we'll stick with that and we'll give it a tweak. Go back to my workspace here. Add a little bit more warmth. That dress is looking pretty blue, but we're getting some warmth down here, so I think that's probably pretty good. Yeah. I'm gonna actually pop back here, see what these tone profiles look like. So all hard, all soft, highlight hard, highlight soft, shadow hard, shadow soft. So in a situation like this, I'm gonna go ahead and probably edit all this stuff out, but we just really like the pulled back version of this, and we'll be able to use this space here to kind of get rid of all that outside nonsense. But I think I'm gonna go highlight soft on this, make sure we preserve that highlight there. Make sure we keep an eye on our histogram, make sure we're not clipping anything. You can also do exposure warnings up here. We're losing some of the darkness back here, but I think that's fine. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about the highlights here and the darks in her hair. Bring up the shadows a touch. Yeah. Let's see. Bring down the highlights a little more. I feel like we're losing some definition there. I'm gonna bring up the blacks just a touch. The shadows up just a touch. Actually, the whole image down, the blacks a little bit. But I think that's it. That's really nice. Before and after, straight out of camera. That's really nice. Love that. All right, we got image from Zion National Park here. A little bit of sunset light, so we get some nice contrast going there. I got Portra 160 +1. Ooh, already that's nice. Brings out the red in the rocks really nicely. +2, 400 plus 1, plus 2, 800 plus 1. I like where we get the blue coming down a little bit more. Give some definition in that sky. And plus 2. Yeah, I think we're, it's really nice in the shadows. I think I'm going to stick with Portra 800 plus 2 on this one. Again, you can see from this trip, had that dust on my sensor. Go ahead and clean that up real fast. And it's gone. And we'll pop over here. Really got to watch this. Getting too warm down here. I might split that actually, because I like the warmth in these rocks, but down here it's real warm. But I think they are quite warm. Let's see, I might bring up the shadows a little bit. Bring down the blacks a touch. Bring up the whites just a little bit. Bring down the highlights just a touch. That's looking really nice. And then again, I would go into Photoshop and do a little dodge and burn in here. But this looks really great. Also, something I didn't mention earlier is they have the grain profiles here, 35 millimeter and medium format, which is a little less tight or less big grain. So 35 millimeter, if you punch it, you can see that. Add a little bit of grain there, reset it, it goes away. Medium format's a little lighter, and then 35 is a little more pronounced. Has a little texture to your image, which is nice. But I really like where that image ends up. It's really pretty. And then the last one is a nice flat, well, sort of flat image. I think it was shot on the Leica, so it's got a nice, easy bit of contrast to work with, even though the sun, man, it might have been behind a cloud or something. Let's take a look here. 160 plus 1, plus 2, 400 plus 2, 800 there. That really brings out the contrast in this image. I think I'm definitely going to shoot with 160 here. Plus 1 is nice, doesn't get too contrasty. I'm going to probably go with cloudy, because I'm guessing that it was a little bit cloudy that day and it keeps it from getting too cool. So cloudy is a good starting point. Pop over here, increase the exposure a little bit, not too much. That's pretty good. Tweak this. Bit of magenta. A bit of warmth, that's really nice. Maybe increase the exposure a little more. Bring up the shadows a little. See some of her dark clothes here. Check the exposure warning, we're just losing a tiny bit, so that's great. I think. All right, so before and after, night and day difference. Like, these look so good on Leica files. It's insane. Like, look at this. Get real. Brings out that beautiful hair. Yeah, that's pretty great. Love that. If this demo is helpful for you guys, go ahead and press that like button gently. And I'll be doing more of these. Hopefully when Kirk and the team get the Fuji pushed out, I will be doing a walkthrough of that as well. So subscribe to be notified when I get that one done. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next time.